Mary Shelley, writing Frankenstein early in the 19th century, and Bram Stoker, penning Dracula at the century's close, together neatly bookend their era's popular horror story genre. While Shelley's 1818 work mainly accessed her society's fascination with science, giving it a futuristic element, Stoker's opus also drew heavily on the past, tapping ancient human fears. The legend of the vampire, as we know it today, owes much of its shape and power to his novel Dracula, written over 120 years ago, which has become a true cornerstone of modern horror. When Bram Stoker published it in 1897, the literary world was in the midst of a cultural shift. The Victorian era was an age of intense social change, with many opposite energies in collision. People of the time were fascinated with new scientific discoveries, yet also with the supernatural, and alongside a social movement seeking gender equality, lurked growing fears about sexuality. Writers like Mary Shelley and Edgar Allan Poe had already explored dark themes, but Stoker's novel would combine the eerie with the modern, folklore blending with the anxieties of the age. Irish-born Stoker worked as a theatre manager for many years, but his deep love for supernatural tales led him to research the legends, folklore, and history surrounding Balkan vampire myths. Admittedly, the character of Count Dracula mostly springs from Stoker's imagination, but he was inspired by the real-life Vlad III, a 15th-century Wallachian prince, also known as Vlad Tepes. Though not really a blood drinker, Vlad's cruelty earned him the nickname Impaler, and his reputation became entwined with the legend of Dracula, connecting savagery with noble lineage. Stoker borrowed this name, but made his Dracula something even more sinister, a murderous creature of the night with dark powers, who maintains immortality by feeding on human blood. His novel's atmosphere is fueled by evocative descriptions of both the mythical, wild landscapes of mainland Europe's Transylvania, and the more familiar Gothic look of Victorian England. The real Transylvania, a land of dark forests, mist-covered mountains, and imposing castles, in which Stoker set Count Dracula's lair, was a region steeped in superstitions about the undead. Bram Stoker never visited Transylvania, but he did travel to Whitby, a small coastal town in northern England, and later used the ruined Whitby Abbey as a central location in his novel. Whitby's remote, windswept cliffs and Gothic ruins inspired some of Stoker's most atmospheric scenes, reflecting the novel's blending of the familiar with the frighteningly unknown. At its core, Dracula is the story of what becomes a team: Jonathan Harker, Mina Murray, Professor Abraham Van Helsing, and Lucy Westenra, together forced to confront a monstrous supernatural force. Jonathan Harker travels to Dracula's castle in Transylvania, unaware of the vampire's true nature. When Dracula arrives in England, he begins to prey on Lucy, turning her into a vampire. The group must then use every resource at their disposal, including science, folklore, and sheer willpower, to both hunt and destroy Dracula, thus ridding the world of his predatory evil. Stoker used the epistolary format, a then highly innovative narrative technique which uses letters, diaries, and even newspaper clippings to create a sense of immediacy and realism. As a Gothic horror novel, Dracula combines atmospheric terror, supernatural elements, and psychological suspense, but also draws on Victorian anxieties about seduction by outsiders. On publication, it met with mixed reviews, some critics praising its originality, others finding its style and pacing too disjointed, or its narrative melodramatic with occasionally stilted dialogue. Yet today, Stoker's novel remains an icon of Gothic fiction and one of the most influential works in the entire horror genre. Its literary, filmic, and pop culture impact immeasurable. Dracula's heritage includes adaptation into over 30 movies since its 1897 publication, from 1922's silent Nosferatu through the Hammer horror series to Francis Ford Coppola and others, adding a romance between Mina and the Count. Each fresh iteration added layers to the character, blending Stoker's original vision with cultural shifts and contemporary fears, explored in endless waves of updated stories, films, or TV shows. Modern vampire reboots like television's True Blood and Buffy the Vampire Slayer owe much of their premise to Stoker's ideas, proving his Count Dracula remains, quite literally, undead. But why does this novel continue to dodge that final stake through the heart? Because at its core, Dracula successfully addresses universal human fears of death, the unknown, and corruption. Across generations, it's invoked deep-seated anxieties about forbidden desires, the erosion of moral boundaries, and the clash between science and superstition, which all persist in our time. The vampire, once a symbol of monstrous evil, now reflects deeper psychological and social issues, from, yes, fears about immigration and otherness, to ethical debates on life prolongation. When a 21st century therapist tells a patient to avoid a certain toxic family member who's proved to be an energy vampire, he owes instant, universal understanding of his words to Bram Stoker. Dracula, it turns out, is immortal. Far more than a horror story, his is a tale of the limits of human knowledge, the consequences of desire, and the battle against forces beyond our understanding.
Bram Stoker's classic follows that ancient literary tradition of human heroes hunting supernatural predators, and you can explore that genre's most famous epic in Episode 8.